Hey guys, once you've got your garment in hand, we've grabbed that for you from the back. We're gonna take this garment from here and step over to our printing zone and jump into getting our t-shirt racked up and ready to print. All right guys, when you step over to your printing zone, we're gonna make sure that we get that string untied from our shirt. If your shirt still has a string, we're gonna drop that string into the bucket on the center of our print hub, and then we're gonna unroll our shirt until it opens up all the way, and we want to be holding the bottom of the shirt in our hands, just like this. Now from here, we want to turn the shirt so that the side that we're printing on is facing us, right? So I'm going to print the front of the shirt. I've got the front of the shirt here facing towards me, bottom of the shirt in my hands, and I'm going to set my 4 fingers on the inside of the opening, just like this. Now with my fingers here, I'm going to scrunch up along the side seams until I hit the armpits. Now do your best with this. Sometimes it's challenging, but as long as we get kind of into this reference zone, that's what we're aiming for. All right, everybody, now that we have our shirt kind of rolled up to the armpits like this, we're gonna go ahead and get it started onto our pallet, working that opening right around the top of our pallet or the shoulders of our pallet. Now, as we get started, we wanna make sure that the shirt is dropping all the way down and below this harbor that's down here. So we're gonna pull that shirt down and around before we pull the shirt the rest of the way onto the pallet, pulling it all the way on until the shoulders stop us from going on any farther. When we're printing the front of our shirt, you'll notice that the neck kind of gives us this visual of our pallet, kind of in the scoop area of our neck, of our collar. So from here, we're gonna work to get our shirt centered, with this being our starting position. All right guys, now that we have our shirt racked onto our pallet where we need it to be to get centered, we're gonna operate first from our seams at the shoulders where the body of our garment and our sleeves are sewn together using this seam here on either side to get a reference to getting the shirt centered. So with those seams, we can either feel for them down the edges of the pallets, or we can pull them out to the side and use a visual cue and kind of compare the gap that we have from the edge of the pallet here to the seam here, comparing that gap to this side gap. So right now we've got a little bit heavier gap on the right side, so I'm gonna adjust my shirt over to the left by pinching the shirt here, lifting the garment up, and then small shift over to the left to hopefully even those seams out. We see here that we've got a pretty even gap from that left seam to that right seam from the respective edges of the pallets. That means I can now move on to checking the side seams of our garment down here at the waist of our pallet. All right guys, now for the waist of our shirt, the side seams down here, we want to do the same thing that we did on our shoulder seams, except these seams are going to be a little bit lower off the edge of the pallet compared to those shoulder seams up here. So again, you can either feel down for them and get a kind of a feel with your hands as a ruler against the edges of your pallets once you find those side seams through your fingertips, or you can pinch them, pull them out to the side, and use that visual cue again. Now we're low left on our seams down here at the waist, so again, I'm gonna shift my garment over to the right, pinch that bottom of the garment down here, lift the shirt up, and do a small movement over to the right, double check our references, either tactile, feeling for it, or visually pulling those seams out to the side. All right guys, now while we're adjusting our garment, we recommend that you use a few small movements to get our shirt centered if we need to adjust our seams at all, both on the shoulders and the side seams. Small movements go a long way as we get our shirt centered. So a couple small movements to hit the mark is always better than trying to do one big giant leap over, because most of the time we're gonna overcorrect that big movement and we're just gonna be jumping back and forth. So do a couple small movements to hit the mark and kind of feeling for those seams in between each of those movements. With our shoulder seams and our side seams now centered and evened up on our left and right sides, the last move that we need to make is setting our collar into our printing position, which is aiming for the bottom of our collar seam way down here to sit just at the edge of the pallet up here. So what we do to move that collar towards us is pinch the shoulder seams out here on both sides, lift the shirt up, and gently slide it back towards you until the bottom of that collar seam hits the edge of the pallet. So just a touch more here and you'll see that seam drops just off the edge of the pallet up here at the top, with that entire collar hem sitting all the way off the pallet. Next, we're just gonna gently press our shirt into the pallet so that the stick that's on the pallet kind of grabs that shirt and holds it in place. This also ensures we get all of the potential wrinkles out of our garment and make sure there's no fuzz in our print area here. So kind of gently work that shirt flat into that pallet, and now we're ready to print. This is the exciting part or the nerve-wracking part. Either way, it's where the magic happens. We're gonna go ahead and take our frame, Drop it down all the way until it's flat against our shirt right here. Once it drops into this spot, it's right where it needs to be. It'll hold itself in place. We don't need to, and please don't, press this frame down any farther. It's right where it needs to be. Now with our frame down in our printing position, we're gonna go ahead and reach in here to the handle of our squeegee, lift our squeegee up, and we're gonna set our blade on the far side of our ink, angle the handle towards us, just like this. We're gonna scrape into that little bit of ink down here, tilt our handle back away from us as we lift our squeegee off of the screen. That picks our ink up so we can set it down at the top of our design right here, so we can move that ink ahead of our squeegee across our design 3 times. There's 2 things we focus on with this squeegee to help us apply this ink into our shirt. The first being the angle that we hold this squeegee at, super important. So what I want you guys to do is set the blade down right behind the ink, lean the handle back towards you, roughly 45 degrees off of our screen, or maybe pointing right at our sternum. This angle we're gonna hold really steadily the entire way across our design, while applying heavy pressure being the second thing we focus on. The more pressure we put into this, the more it's gonna bind the ink into our garment, into the fibers of our shirt, and help that print last for a really long time. So this is kind of what this looks like, setting our angle first, applying heavy pressure. You notice that I kind of get that athletic stance, drive forward with your legs instead of your arms, and we're just gonna move nice and steady across that whole design. Now once we get down to the bottom of that design, we're gonna lift our squeegee, set it on the far side of the ink for that scrape, scoop, and lift, so we can pick ink up again, set it down to the top of our screen. Now we're right back to our starting position of pressing this ink across our design 2 more times. All right, so we've just printed across our design our first time. We're gonna print across this our second and third time. You notice that I've got my squeegee set behind this bead of ink so we can move it forward ahead of our blade. I'm gonna set my print angle back towards me and drive that pressure nice and steady the whole way across my design. Stop once I get just past my design, set my squeegee on the far side, do that scrape, scoop, and lift one last time here, set my ink down, and then reset my squeegee for my third and final print. Now, once I've printed across my design 3 times, maybe a couple more if you need to, we're gonna take our squeegee, set the blade down at the back of our screen, lean the handle back against the dials back here, and now we're hands-free and our screen is ready to be lifted up to check out our design. So I'm gonna lift this screen up all the way to here. That's gonna hold itself in place and I can now check out our print, looking in nice and tight, make sure all the details are filled in the way we want them to be. Once I've had a chance to look at my design closely and decide that I really like the way that this print looks, we're ready to get this shirt over to our dryers to make sure that we're setting this ink in place so that it can last for a really long time for you. It's really important though to be careful with this process, getting the shirt from here over to our dryer belts, not letting this print smudge, not letting the shirt fold up onto the print, or letting the print fold over onto itself. So what we do is a little bit counterintuitive, so bear with me on this. We reach into all this excess garment down here at the base of our pallet, bunch and bundle it up almost all the way to the design. Then we hold that bundle tight like it's a handle. We're gonna lift up and reach forward until the shirt releases from all the stick of the pallet. You can see it kind of slowly releasing here. Be patient with it as it reaches forward, pulling it all the way onto the pallet. Now once it's released all the way, we're gonna lay that shirt down flat, pinch the shoulders back here, lift the shirt up and slide it all the way off of the pallet, just like this. Now, as that shirt drops off the pallet, it's really important to make sure you just hold it like this. Don't twist it or fold it to look at it. We have a tendency to drop our shirt or it folds on itself while we're doing that. So hold it really steadily, walk over to the dryers right here. You're gonna turn and face the dryer, reach the bottom portion of the shirt way up to that opening, set it down on the belt and pull the shoulders back towards you, which lands our print facing up. To go through our dryer that's running at 900 degrees to cure this ink at 320 degrees the entire way through. Now this is going to run through this belt for about 45 seconds. Once it gets to the back end of the belt, that ink is cured and set in place for you to wear, wash, hold, fold, hug, squeeze, twist, whatever you got to do to it. If you want to move on and print the other side, fair game on the back side of the dryer.